So I haven't taken the top off of that because I don't have to yet.
Those
Okay.
drone larvas, or
We're
they're
keeping the bees
queens?
a little under control.
Now, here's something
Yeah.
you want to look at.
Now we're going to look for mites.
This is drone brood that was put between the frames. And right now in the sunshine, you got white brood, snow white brood, and what you're looking for is mites on that drone brood. Mites love drone brood even better than worker brood. And in the sunlight, a mite stands out really easy to spot.
Because it's dark?
But we don't see it.
I don't see any evidence of mites.
Tapping scraper to flip over some?
No.
No, I just went through them. So these are all the hop guard strips from last fall. We've been using those very successfully, I think. We use them when it's very late, when she's broodless or almost broodless. Our hands are freezing. We're out in November putting these things in. But as you see, there's no mites in the hive. What I've been seeing is in the spring, the bees are very clean. So I'm always constantly cleaning my beehives because this builds up on you in time. And maintenance pays because when you're going back and all the time and you gotta take a frame out, you got all this wax build up, you're gonna end up rolling bees and having a hard time getting the frame out.
In some cases, is it worth collecting the wax?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can make stuff with the wax.
That's one of the reasons we have reversers. We flip them back. There's a bag under the reverser. I designed those, I don't know, 20 years ago. And found out we made about an extra 300 to 400 pounds of wax every year just cleaning out the hive scrapings.
So there they brought in a lot of pollen. Hopefully they're not hoarding it.
That looks like fresh pollen.
It does look like fresh pollen. And I'm doing a quick look for the queen because you never know where she'll be. She goes where she wants. She's usually not there. Watch out, Sam. They're getting a little jumpy. Step back a little bit, okay? So they're not very happy. So I'm just going to go in and make sure there's definitely not a problem with the queen before we decide whether we're going to put the breeder box on or not. Yeah, well, I can tell when they start to get a little bit more. Okay, now we're into the brood chamber. There's cat brood. Not a great pattern on that one. But that's a little better. Anyway, most of that brood is going to be in that shallow this time of year. But what this is telling me is she is up or down into this brood chamber. There's a much better frame. Okay, a lot of it depends on how good your combs are. We got combs and beehives that are probably 40 years old sometimes. But everything looks fine. They are a little jumpy, and I'm going to just attribute that to having been moved up here this morning. Not, that could also indicate there's a problem, but there's not a problem. Now we're going to pop this.
You might want to pull a frame out and see what's in there.
So remember, this was their top box, and it was also their winter feed. You got some pollen in there, some honey. Not a lot of brood. They must have put it down below. Pollen. I can see there's something there.
working hard. Gathering a lot of pollen. Little honey. They're not quite as strong as I thought they might be by the number of bees that we got.
Yeah, but it's still only what, March 4th?
Yeah. Yeah.
March 5th?
May.
I mean, May 5th? May 5th. That's what I meant. So again, I don't want to crush too many bees, so I put this on and I spin it around. And then take your fingers in the corners and square it up. Jumpy did. Smoke.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
now,
another chance to look for mites.
yeah. Okay.
Now you'll notice this super, except for the drone brood, doesn't have much in it. And that's normally in the spring. They've gone up in the hive during the winter where it's warmer and the heat goes up. And you're going to put the hive body on?
Oh, yeah.
I think we should.
I think I'm
No, we won't have to do it ourselves. Okay. Now what we're doing is putting this hive body on. I would say if we're in a bee yard with a lot of bees, we might not do one like this. But this is just a nuke that we made last year. And
So right now I'm going to treat these, even though we didn't see mites, and get forward.
so this basically is an empty super as far as honey's concerned. So that will give them room to bring in some honey later in the year without having to stick it all down in there. So now that queen's got all kinds of room to life. So we come back in 30 days, see what we've got to brood in this box. And we'll look for the queen, make sure she's not on the frame. Depending on the amount of brood and stuff, we'll either make a single nuke or split it, or you can even make two nukes if it's really loaded. So there's one trick for people if you want to split your hive.
That's going to give them something to talk about. So gloves on, it is acid. It's not sulfuric acid. Your finger's not going to dissolve if you get it on it. I mean, but if you're doing it all day and with bare hands, it'll start to lose your fingerprint.
So is your thought, you're not going to harvest this honey, that's why you're doing it, that's why you're putting it, that's why you're treating it?
That you can put on for harvested honey, no problem at all. It's only formic acid, it's completely organic, and it doesn't, it's approved.
It won't last that long anyway. I mean, by the time you get into the honey flow, that'll be long gone.
Take
The
those things
paper will
out
still
after.
be there.
Now, do be careful because they're not happy about this. I want to clean this up, it's a mess.
The other side too.
Yeah.
So that formic acid, those, do you take those out in several weeks?
Actually, they sort of dry up, and the bees chew the paper, and you just straighten off.
You can take them off anytime you're back in there when they're done. And it doesn't really, they don't have to come out. It's not like
Okay.
it's doing anything, they just become inert. Like maybe it's a little bit of an antiseptic, it may help with some of them. You want to use a spacer on that? It's pretty waxed up.
Oh, okay.
I'd have to take every frame out, and they're a little pissy to do that.
Should look.
They're spaced. It's an 8 framer, not a 9. We normally have a 9.
Would you like?
But that beehive's just been reversed.
Few old ones that have been entombed.
And we put a box on for the future. And in 30 days, you come back, the queen should have come up here and laid, hopefully, you know, right across, that you at least have, 5 or 6 frames of eggs and brood. And what we do and how we raise most all our bees, and who are by far and away the best queens we have, best bees we have, is we'll take that, and that's another class, but we'll take that and we'll transfer it either into a single box or into a double nuke, and hopefully make 2 nucleus colonies from that. It's better, a little bit better in a double with 4 frames and 4 frames side by side. Take the ingredients, those nukes on a stick, like I showed you, plus eggs. You got to make sure you're making the right cake and you get plenty of worker bees in there, and not the original queen, and set it aside. It's kind of a myth that you have to go 20 miles down the road. You don't. Most of the bees you're transferring are nurse bees. They've never flown out of the hive before.
So you put it right next to it. You
We-
just reverse them.
We might not put it next to it. I might put it over here, you know, just for grip. But we raise them all the time in the same bee hive. And everywhere you read it, so take your nukes away, because you will lose your field bees. Bees you have in there are going to fly right back to the hive, but not the nurse bees. And that's why you have to be very careful to have plenty of bees. You put them aside, and you come back in another 30 days, and you look, and you should have a laying queen, you should have brood and eggs, and you have another beehive. And you haven't bought a queen, you haven't bought a package, you haven't done anything like that, and that queen is going to be far and away the best queen you're going to have, that you could get anywhere. Even when you buy one and introduce it, the bees will sometimes supersede it right away. Okay? I've had good queens from Mike Palmer. I put them in a strong hive. I don't like that queen for some reason. Come back, find a queen, but she's not marked. She's not. They killed her for some reason and started their own. That's their decision. That's fine. I still have a queen. I mean, you know, there's literature on, they're making an emergency cell and all this bullshit. Well, we've been doing it for how long, Dad? 83 years?
Yeah.
Pretty much the same way. And these queens will, when you make a nuke, the nuke will, depending on when you make it, depending on the honey flow, they may make their winter feed themselves. They're not a production hive that first year. You're not going to get any honey off of them normally. Sometimes if one does really well, you might get 2 shallows, but we put a shallow on top.
But Chaz, could you take, with this configuration, could you shake the bees down to the bottom 2 supers and then put a queen excluder on and have them repopulate up above? So you got the queen down below, and then just reverse the upper 2 and throw a new queen in? Or let them, do their own queen.
But
One thing, if you
let them
want
raise their own queen.
if you want to split there's a technique that we've done in the past. Years ago, when we used to have a good winter, we'd have a 4% winter wash, you know. We had more bees than we had room for. And so instead of making nukes, we'd split them, okay? Because we didn't want a lot of extra colonies. And
That's easy.
and one of the tricks you can do, and I don't know, they used to do it years ago, but I haven't heard about it recently. There's a gimmick you can make called a nuke board. And what it is,
You used to bring one of those here for workshops.
Huh?
You used to bring one of these here for
Yeah.
workshops 10 years ago.
and all it is, it's like an inner cover with no hole in it. And the front edge missing, one edge missing. So it's like a little mini bottom board, piece of plywood, strips around it on 3 sides. Or sometimes they're just a section cut out. If you've got 2 hive bodies, and they're both full of brood, full of bees, pain in the rear trying to find the queen, right? So what you do is you split them and you put the nuke board in between the two hive bodies. You can even leave the shallows on, doesn't matter. And actually you have to be careful. Sometimes if the honey's coming in, you may have to put a shallow underneath so that there's room for the bees on the bottom one to queen to lay. So you stick that in there, the entrance to the front, and the bees will be flying in and out. You basically got two hives now, right? But you don't know where the queen is. Well, that's easy. You come back in about 3 or 4 or 5 days, and you check to see where you find eggs, okay, in which hive body. You find eggs, you know the queen's there, right? So let's say the top one you come in, and there's eggs in it. So you know that one's queenless, but they know they're queenless, and they're probably starting another queen. So you take that hive body, put a new inner cover on it, put a bottom board on it, and you got another hive. And then you just put your old hive body back right. Always keep your old queen in the same location if you want to make any honey. And you put that hive body back, and you've got an extra hive. Okay, and you didn't have to look for the queen, didn't have to look for brood, nothing. Okay. No, you do have to look, make sure there's eggs and stuff. But that's already done because they've got. Once you see eggs, you know they got a queen, right? Where the queen is. You want to make sure there's brood in the other one, you know, eggs and brood, so they can raise another queen. And they'll raise another queen, and you'll have two hives. If the, you know, if you find the bottom one doesn't, top one doesn't have a queen, then you know the queen's in the bottom. And another thing you can use them for, which I don't know anybody that does anymore.
You mean one of those?
If let's say you're late spring, the honey's coming in, maybe you're off vacationing playing golf somewhere, and you come back and you got your hive and you look and you got queen cells hanging in. You know they're going to swarm, right? So what you can do is you put an extra empty, usually a shallow, under one hive body, or even if you got one hive body, you give them more room, top and bottom, and you put the nuke board in, but you put the entrance to the back. So the bees flying from one half out don't get confused with the bees flying the other way. So now you essentially got two hives again, and you've got queen cells everywhere. Okay. So now one of 3 things can happen, and you put empty supers on both halves, so you've got 2 hives with extra room now. Both of them can hot swarm. That is really rare. Maybe 15-20% of the time both might swarm. Next thing can happen is one will swarm half, but the other one won't swarm. So that's pretty good. You pull your nuke board out, just put your hive back together again, and they're all done swarming, and you only lost half your hive. Okay. And surprisingly amount of time, maybe 20 or 30%, neither of them will swarm. I think splitting the brood and putting on extra room tricks the queen, and a lot of times you'll end up with 2 queens in there, because they'll hatch a queen, but instead of swarming, they'll stay. You know, so all of a sudden you just got room and they're queenless, right? And you'll end up with 2 queens, and then you just split them and you got 2 hives. So you don't have to look for anything.
But I'm getting packages this year, and any of that manipulation, I'm not going to be able to make a nuke out of those packages this year, am I? There's probably not going to be enough bees. No. Okay. No, I have.
You can get them to the winter, you'll do good.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So next year I get to play around with it.
Next year, if you're, like I said before, if you're a hobby beekeeper, everybody wants one hive of bees. That is really tough.
Right.
Because you got the equipment, you got the everything else. If your hive dies over the winter, you're dead in the water. Right.
That's what I did.
You've
So I'm
got
getting
a bunch
2
of,
this
bunch
year.
of equipment has to be cleaned out. You don't have any way of getting more bees. You don't have any way of getting queen. Right? You can buy a package and put it in and go through the whole rigmarole. Now, what I recommend is try to keep at least 3 to 5 hives. You can work 5 hives almost as fast as you can one, because by the time you get your suit on and your smoker lit and everything else, you know, that takes you longer than working the bees, right? And that way, if you say got 3 hives and 2 of them die, at least you've got 1. And if that one's reasonably strong, you can make 2 more
Right.
using the brood and eggs and stuff from your existing hive. If you lose one, of course, it's even easier. And that's why, you know, you're almost, if you only got 1 hive, sooner or later you're going to lose it. If you're doing a good job and you've got 3 or 4 or 5 hives, hopefully you're going to get 1 through the winter. And that's all you got to do.
Yeah, I tried the 1 hive and it died this winter, so
Yeah.
I thought I tried 2 hives this year.
Yeah.
Figure somebody's got to survive.